Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Bhavet Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Since we are in the Guruvayurappan Temple, Krishna Krishna Mukunda Janardhana, Krishna Govinda Narayana Hare, Achyudananda Govinda Madhava, Satchidananda Narayana Hare. So, I'm going to talk in English because I know there are many people who don't know Malayalam here. Although I'm tempted to talk in Malayalam, but my Malayalam is not too good either. So, every time I go to a place for the first time, I usually try to talk about the Gita. And all the more relevant because Guruvayurappan is only one of the representations of Krishna Bhagavan, who only once took on the role of a guru. And that was in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when he became the Jagat Guru, teaching the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Rest of the time you know his roles. Sometimes with the gopis in Vrindavan, sometimes leading the Pandavas into battle and so on and so forth, and many. So I would like to touch this particular subject. I am beginning to suspect that the reason why the Blossom Foundation is probably going to find, we are going tomorrow to figure out, near Dallas, maybe Guruvayurappan's pull, God knows. Who knows? Anyway. So, I know many of you would have read the Gita, but still, there are young people who need to know some things, including the mathematician there, that the Bhagavad Gita forms part of the Mahabharata, the second largest epic written in Sanskrit in ancient times, the Mahabharata. And it appears in that section called the Bhishma Parva. And the Gita is important because among those who take up the study of Vedanta, which means deeper aspects of the culture and philosophy of our country, of India, sorry, when I say our country, it could mean differently. I don't have a green card, so. This particular great textbook, all the great acharyas, starting from Shankara, Adi Shankara, to Ramanujacharya, to Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Vallabhacharya, and many in between, have written commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, clearly demonstrating that in a very important part of the curriculum, the study of Vedanta. And among the Prasthanatrayas, which means the three important textbooks to be read by every student of Vedanta, we have the Upanishads, we have the Brahma Sutras. Brahma Sutras are too abstract for most people. Imagine reading a text which starts with Atato Brahma Jinyasa. Here begins the understanding of the Brahman. We don't even know what we are talking about. And there is the Upanishad, which goes into the depths of philosophy. In the middle of this comes the Bhagavad Gita. Now the Bhagavad Gita, the importance about Bhagavad Gita is that the same teachings which are in the Upanishad, which need a great deal of sharp intelligence and vairagya and so on to understand, are presented in very simple language in the Gita, which People like me, people like you, I don't know about you, people like me can understand. This is the importance of the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, when Vedavyasa wrote the dhyana of the Gita, he expressed it beautifully by saying that this Gita, if you consider the Upanishads to be cows, Sarvo Upanishato Gau, if you consider the Upanishads as the cows, Dugdha Gopala Nandana, and if you consider Krishna to be the one who, what's that called? Dugdha. Takes the milk out of the cow with his fingers on the udder. Partho Vatsaha, if you consider Arjuna Partha as the calf, when the calf hits the udder of the cow with his head, then it gives milk. Sudhir Bhokta, and which the wise enjoy. Dugdham Gita Amritam Mahat. This is the immortal message of the Bhagavad Gita. Vyasa had described this in the Dhyana Sloka. So what it does is to simplify the great teachings of the Upanishad into understandable language, and that it's not only a theoretical study but also a practical understanding is clear from every end of every chapter of the Gita. Vyasa ends by saying, Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita, so this is the Bhagavad Gita. Upanishads is the knowledge of the Upanishad. Brahma Vidyayam, what does the Upanishad deal with? Brahma Vidya, knowledge of the Supreme Being. And it's not just that, Yoga Shastri, it is the science of yoga. And then Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. So, basically, the format of the Gita is a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Although most of the time Krishna talks and Arjuna listens, but he's allowed to butt in whenever he wants. You will see most of the chapters start with Sri Bhagavan Vacha, says Bhagavan, but in between Arjuna stops him and says, wait. Now you said all this, I don't seem to understand. Can you explain? So tirelessly he explains it to him. So this is the dialogue. So as I said, even though it's a dialogue, it's Krishna who talks more than Arjuna in the form of questions and so on. So this is the Gita. Now, there is always this question. Why is it? Can a deep philosophical teaching be taught in the middle of a battlefield? Because many people ask me, this Kurukshetra war, how can you talk 18 chapters of the Gita in the middle of a battle? I have only one question. If you think that you accept Krishna as a Purnavatara, then you should concede that this is also possible. Otherwise you can just think that Vyasa has written. Up to you. If it is so, then this is possible. Why not? If it is not possible, then you can say, oh, Vyasa has written it in such a way so that it is useful to every one of us who face the battlefield of life every day 24/7. You can look at it that way also. So now, it has 18 chapters, starting with Arjuna Vishada Yoga to Karma Sannyasa Yoga, last. Now, just look at this 18 chapters. It's a gradual movement from chapter 1 to chapter 18, and each chapter is called a yoga. Perhaps in the history of ancient religious literature, this is the first textbook that concedes that there are different ways of finding the truth. Each part is in yoga. Yoga means what? The practice of finding the truth. So, first we start with Arjuna Vishada Yoga. What does that mean? The Sanskrit word Vishada can be translated as confusion, indecision, sorrow. So in the first chapter, Arjuna is in the same situation as we are many times in our lives. Indecision, we don't know what to act, what is the right thing to do. Sorrow, sorrow is something you cannot escape from this world. Whether you like it or not, it's there around the corner. If you are very happy, be happy, but make sure to face it when it comes out around the corner. Sorrow. And it's generally in sorrow, confusion and pain that human beings generally think, oh, is there something more than this life that we are leading? Or are we to live and die in this situation? Is there something beyond? Is there something you can seek which is not caught by this sorrow? It's only when you get a good shot that human beings generally begin to think of this. Otherwise, the Guru Granth Sahib of the Sikh says, Dukh mein sumiran sab kare, sukh mein kare na koi. When you are in pain, then you call on, please, please come, help me out. And but when you are in happiness, generally, theek hai, you might light a lamp, but do this as you walk and go along. So it's pertinent that the first chapter is Arjuna Vishada Yoga, and I would say we are all in the same position as Arjuna, asking, what am I to do? How do I get out of this mess? Is there something beyond this or just this world that we have? Not that you shouldn't live in this world. So, after beginning with this Arjuna Vishada Yoga, then Vyasa takes you to Sankhya Yoga. Now you must understand, Sankhya is a very ancient philosophy, written by the great Muni Kapila. Incidentally, it's very funny. In Sanskrit, the word Kapila means blonde, golden haired. Anyway, so you think Kapila went from the west? We don't know. But there are Kashmiris with blonde hair, so it's okay. So anyway, so after Sankhya, then you have Karma Yoga, and so on and so forth. There is Dhyana Yoga, there is Purushottama Yoga, many. Now, what I want to talk about is, in the 12th chapter, this is also my practice when I go somewhere for the first time. Then I try to take up not only the Gita, but the 12th chapter of the Gita. Because the 12th chapter is called Bhakti Yoga. I know people who dismiss Bhakti as something only important for uneducated, illiterate villagers and so on. Wrong. But why is it that Vyasa, or let's say Krishna, has to wait till the 12th chapter to talk about Bhakti? Why not start with it? It's so important. If it is so important, why not from chapter 2 instead of Sankhya? Now, incidentally, Sankhya is also an atheistic philosophy and dualistic, Purusha Prakriti. So why? Now, let's look at this very carefully. You have read the Gita probably, so you know how it is. Up to the 11th chapter, let's say 8th chapter, Krishna prepares the ground for the final teaching, for the understanding. And because in between there is also Dhyana Yoga. Then, until then, Krishna is sitting in the chariot, offering Arjuna. They are good friends, they are relatives, they are close to each other. And they are talking on almost equal terms. When Arjuna gets very depressed, Krishna calls him Mahabahu, raises his spirits up, strong-limbed one, and so on. And they are talking like you and me talking. Then suddenly, in the 10th chapter, in Malayalam is a record mati, suddenly Krishna turns the record in a different way, the CD, by shifting from this normal talk of questions and answers to say, among the mountains I am the Meru, among the Achalas, immovables, I am the Himachala, among the Munis I am Kapila, watch Kapila, and so on and so forth. Among the Vedas, I am the Samaveda, Samavedosmi, and so on. So, Arjuna, who has till then been listening carefully to a good friend, is wondering, what is this guy saying now? Till now we were on equal terms, we were talking to each other. He knows he's not equal, but on equal terms. And suddenly he says, he's sitting here and he says, I am the Meru, I am Kapila, I am the Samaveda, and so on. So Arjuna's so-called rational mind, but we all have a kind of rational mind. We like to arrange it in some order according to our life's experiences and knowledge and say this is rational. Okay, fine, that's okay. We have to live in this world. Arjuna also has that framework of rationality. Suddenly he finds that Krishna is trying to put a dent into it. What's happened suddenly? Why is he saying I am Meru? He can't fully understand what's going on. That is the first strike at Arjuna's or everyone's egotistic understanding that the supreme reality can be understood by the finite mind. First blow. Okay. Second, chapter 11. There is the Vishwarupa Darshana, and Arjuna is completely shattered. He says, I thought this guy was my friend. He was sitting in front of me, leading into the battle, and then what's happening? I can't understand. I can't place my finger. All he can say is that I don't know what you are. I bow down to you. Tavam Mahadideva, Purusha Purana, that's all he can say. So now he has come to the point where his so-called cocksureness has been broken down. Where he thinks he knows has been broken down. And then from there begins the 12th chapter of the Gita, which is called Bhakti Yoga, Yoga of devotion. So what we should also bear in mind, that we need to go through this all to come to that. It's not as if it's easy to do that, just by singing bhajans, okay, which is all fine, but the mind has to get proper hold on what it means. That it's not something which can be defined by our little brains, and that there is perhaps something beyond. Well, if you want to talk in scientific terms, there are many parts of the brain which have not been tapped. In this world, we don't need too much. The frontal lobe is enough. That doesn't mean there are other things that don't exist. There are many hidden things to be explored, and a neurologist will tell you that we use only 20% of our brains for this life. What about the 80? What's it doing? Now that's one department. We won't go into that. That will be another satsangs we'll leave. So when this happens, then in the 12th chapter is one of those few chapters where Arjuna, it begins with Arjuna Uvacha, not Sri Bhagavan Vacha. So I always say it's meant for us. We can start something saying Arjuna Uvacha or M Uvacha. So the question that Arjuna asks Krishna is very interesting. It's a question that may occur to us many times. He asks, Some say that to worship or to look at the Supreme Reality as the abstract, formless, absolute, almost intangible Brahman, which is what the Upanishads are talking about. Is that superior to somebody who thinks of the Supreme Reality as you, for instance, sitting in front of me and worships in concrete form? According to you, who among these two is the greatest of yogis or bhaktas? Both words are interchangeable in this chapter. Sometimes Krishna says, Yaha bhakta same priya. That bhakta is dear to me. Who practices this? So according to you, Arjuna asks Krishna, which is a proper yogi, better yogi or a better bhakta? Can you please tell me? If you tell me, I'll accept it. But after seeing all this Vishwarupa Darshana, he has no doubt about that. So, then Krishna explains. Now I want to tell you a small little story before we go into... How much time? No? I want to tell you a little story before we go into this from contemporary times, not immediately, but a little before this, beginning of the century. Beginning of the last century. There was a man in Calcutta whose name was Mahendranath Gupta. He wrote under the pen name of M. The most beautiful work he has written is called The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Beautiful book. Not this M, that M. So, one day he was a headmaster of a pretty well-known school. And one day, while he got very upset and depressed and angry, and you know what happens. And the reason was, of course, we all know, I'm a married man. His wife got upset with him. So, you know how it can happen. I think that's why Babaji told me, get married and see what's happening. Good for your ego. So anyway, so he got upset and he was going away from home. So, just temporarily, as we all do. And a friend of his said that there is a beautiful garden in Dakshineshwar. So you can go and enjoy yourself. It's on the banks of the Hooghly River, Ganga they call it. So he said, okay. And he also said that there is a Paramahamsa living there. Maybe you might see him. Who knows? So he said, okay. So he went on those days horse buggies. Halfway through he said, I am not going to Dakshineshwar. I don't want to get into all these religious things. Devi temple is there, this, that. So, but what happened was, when the cart reached in front of the Dakshineshwar temple, the axle broke. So he didn't know what to do, he had to get down. So he got up and then he went inside the Dakshineshwar temple. Beautiful temple. So he was sitting there wondering what to do when he saw a person coming towards him. And this person was, you might have seen Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's picture in which he has a beard. But in early days, he used to clean shave. So he saw a very fair, clean shaved, glowing faced gentleman coming, wearing a typical red bordered Bengali dhoti and polished red jutas, slippers. And he had chewed pan, so his lips were red. So he came and he asked him, who are you, and so on. So they had a chat. So he asked him, I heard there is a Paramahamsa, because he thought Paramahamsa must be a matted haired, dreadlock man. So he said, I heard there is a Paramahamsa here, do you know? He said, I don't know, but sit down, let's have a chat. So they had a chat, interesting chat, because he asked him, oh, you're a young man. In those days, young men in Calcutta used to be referred to as young Bengal. So he said, you're a young Bengal. So tell me, do you believe in God with form or without form? So I'm saying this because of Arjuna's question to Krishna in the 12th chapter. You believe in God with form or without form? Now, all those young people in those days were part of the Brahmo Samaj, which believed in formless. So naturally, M said, I believe in God without form, formless. Okay, so that's fine. He said, that's fine. Many great rishis thought so, it's fine. Okay, so this supreme formless God of yours, where does he reside? In some special heaven, or is he everywhere? In all places. So he thought for a while and he said, I think he's everywhere, all places. Okay. Then he pointed inside. There was a temple of Kali there, with the mother goddess there. He said, if your God is everywhere, he's also inside that image, right? So why do you reject it? If he's all pervading, he also pervades the image. You can't say that image is out of it. What do you say? He had no answer because nobody had asked him this kind of a question. He had met many learned professors, but nobody had asked. So he just got stunned and he went back saying, I'll think about it. And then when he left, he said, I'm not going to come back here. What is this? Because this seems to be some idol worship and so on. Many days passed. One day, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and the boys who surrounded him on Sundays, sitting and having a good time. In fact, many people said, this guy is not teaching them anything, he's just having a good time, eating rasgullas and jumping around. Anyway, that's the way he thought. So while they were sitting, Ramakrishna told them a story about a peacock that used to go to a temple because the priest used to mix opium with the prasada. So one day it had the prasad. Next day onwards, at exactly the same time the peacock used to appear because it got caught with the opium. And after saying that, he said, peacock is going to come now. So they wondered because sometimes he said mad things. So which peacock? There was no peacock there. So they continued the discussion. 5 minutes later, M. Mahendranath Gupta walked in. As soon as he came in, Thakur, as he was called, told his disciples, the peacock has come. So they burst out laughing. He didn't know why they are laughing. And they were making fun of him. So afterwards he asked the boys, hey, what was it? Do I behave like a clown? Why did you laugh when I come? They said, this is the story. He said, the peacock will come to take the opium. And when you came, he said, it's come. That's why we laughed. So in the same way, there is an opium involved in this. And people think that this journey into the spiritual is a dry kind of why should we go in? It's a joyous journey. In fact, many people have described it as getting drunk in ecstasy. So anyway, there are all kinds of drunkards. There are those who drink the spirit from the bottle and there are those who drink from inside. So, so Arjuna asked this question, who do you think is greatest among the yogis or bhaktas? One who worships you as the abstract or one who worships you? Krishna says, to worship the Supreme Being as the Supreme Brahman is fine. Many rishis have done that. It's okay. But the problem is that we, human beings, are those who live mostly by form and shape. In Vedanta, it's called Nama and Rupa. How do we know each other? If I say Meghana, I know this is the lady. Or if I see her, or I know that this is that one which is called Megana. So Rupa, when you say the name Nama, there is all the Rupa. And or you see the Rupa and you know the name. This is how we live in this world. Therefore, he said, for most people, it's a little difficult to fix your attention on something that is abstract. Because we are all form and name-based living beings mostly. If you say no, I have a question. Early morning when we wake up, we go to brush our teeth. Nowadays every wash basin has a mirror. What do we do first? Look at ourselves, right? And see how many hairs have gone grey, how many more wrinkles have come or gone. With the proliferation of beauty parlors, we still have to wonder what's happening to us. Men and women, okay? Please don't mistake me. Why? Because we are so concerned with our own form. And if somebody in a party calls you by the wrong name, you are very upset. Nama is very important to us. So we are basically, unless we are great rishis, name and form oriented human beings. Therefore, Krishna says it's easier for us to find it, because then you have a relationship. To relate to the Supreme Being is possible, the formless Brahman, but actually only when the ego has been totally rubbed out that this is possible. Otherwise, we think we have reached the Brahman. The most egotistic man might be the one who says, Aham Brahmasmi. Although it has its deeper sense, I agree. So, therefore, and so Krishna says that's okay, but it's better this way because there is some form of aradhana, some form of, when you go to a temple, even though you're busy with various other things, or a church for instance, there is something to draw your attention because we are all people who live by sensory organs. So there is the sound of the bell and the sound of the drums for the ears. There is this beautiful sight when you open the door for the eyes. There is this lovely fragrance of the incense for the nose. And then finally you get prasadam for the tongue. So, you know what I mean? There is something to keep us there. And actually the meaning of the word prasad in Sanskrit means peace, anandam. It's a substitute word for ananda. At least temporarily we get some ananda here. So, he says that's fine. However, if you think you want to think of the Supreme Being as the abstract, that's up to you, that's fine. But he says, it doesn't matter how you look at the Supreme Being or how you worship the Supreme Being. That's not so important. So what is important? He says, according to me, I would call somebody a great bhakta or a great yogi if he has certain qualities, attributes. And what are the attributes? Krishna gives 3 attributes for someone whom he would call a great yogi or a great bhakta, interchangeable here. One is samniyamindriya gramam, one who has control over his emotions and senses. Very often what happens, we go into kirtan bhajan, our minds are built up to great heights, almost hysterical heights, and then when you go back home it's plunged down to the lowest level. Can't maintain it because the mind has not been purified, the sense organs have not been under control, and therefore the emotions have not been under control. I would like to go a little more on this, but I won't. We don't have time. We'll do it maybe next time. It's a good idea to take up, if you are willing, if you're not bored with this satsang, one chapter of the Gita, any one chapter. Now we can not do the 12th because we are kind of covered, and do it for 2 days. That will be a good idea. Not like a Bhagavata Saptah, that is 7 days. When I'm in the US especially, I'm running around up and down. So we can have 2 days for one chapter of the Gita, any one chapter. So anyway, so now one is control over the senses. and control over therefore the emotions. Because it's only when the mind is tranquil that it is possible to touch divinity. 2, according to Krishna, not according to me, sarvatra samabuddhaya. Is it possible to maintain your tranquility of mind in the midst of all circumstances? Pleasure or pain, heat or cold, praise or insult. You know how our lives are, they're like what is that thing children go on? Roller coasters. If somebody talks highly of us, we are on cloud 9. If somebody calls me an idiot, then I am down in the dumps. To see a psychiatrist, I am depressed. Not oppressed, depressed. This is our life. Krishna says, can you maintain tranquility? Sarvatra samabuddhya, in all situations, can your buddhi be sama, quiet and tranquil? This quality. It's possible. In fact, I always tell people, blame is better than praise, because at least you know where you stand. If somebody keeps praising us all the time, if for 100 days, every morning when I wake up, somebody says, you are God, on the 101st day I might begin to believe I am God. So, if somebody says you are an idiot, at least I'll think, okay, maybe there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong in looking at ourselves. Because I think, as the Upanishad says, he who knows, knows not, and he who knows not, knows. If you look at all the scientific discoveries on this earth, it started with somebody saying, I don't know. Let me look. The biggest problem is no. Everybody knows. In fact, there are more gurus than disciples nowadays. That's what to do. Everybody knows. So, Krishna says, therefore, I have to tell you this, sorry, time. I had the same problem when I was with my Guru, Maheshwarnath Babaji. When he taught me to sit down and make my mind calm, there was one problem with me. There was a man who, when I was very young, troubled me a lot. His image used to come up all the time and sit down. So how to make the mind tranquil? He used to think, this fellow has come even here in the Himalayas. Like that kind of thought. So Babaji looked at me 2-3 days and then he said, Kya kar rahe ho? Dhyan kar rahe ho? Kya kar rahe ho? So I explained to him. And then he said, okay, from tomorrow, even if this guy doesn't appear, because sometimes comes, sometimes doesn't. He said, every day, invoke him. Imagine that he is with you. And then offer some flowers onto his feet and say, oh, your God come in this form to make me better. Can you do that? He asked me. I said, no. First I said no, but then with Babaji I never could say no forever. So I said, okay. So within 6 days or so, gone. He doesn't want flowers, so he went off. So what I mean to say is, can we, okay, suppose you call me a fool. What does it really matter if I don't know English? I don't know English. You call me a fool. What happens? Nothing. If I know Hindi, I might suspect you are calling me a fool, flower, and be very elated. But it's the same thing you have said. So, sarvatra samabuddhaya means don't depend on public opinion. Let people say, you do what you think is right. Remain steady with your mind. Don't go down too much, don't go up too much. Have a good ride. Like a good takeoff and a good landing. So, okay, so that is over. Not over, I mean, department. Then the third point which Krishna says is, but one thing, if people start living this way, psychiatrists will run out of business. No depression, nothing. So So they will do something else, it doesn't matter. So, I want to tell you this. There's a joke about two psychiatrists meeting each other. They shook hands and one said to the other, "You look fine, how am I?" So anyway, proceeding from there, the third point, the attribute that one should have according to Krishna is to be considered a bhakta or a yogi. Yes. Sarvabhuta hite. One who has the welfare of all living beings in his heart, who doesn't mean injury to anybody, who sees the essence of the Supreme Self in every heart and therefore considers every moving human being as a temple of God with the Supreme Being in the heart as the Antaryami. If one lives this way, we will be happy and the world will be happy. Krishna says, if these qualities are there, it doesn't matter what mode of worship you perform. It's okay. It doesn't matter. But make sure that these qualities are developed. And then it goes on. So you must read the 12th chapter of the Gita. I would very much recommend that you read. Nowadays many translations are available because unfortunately people have forgotten Sanskrit. So, it's 8 o'clock. Having said this, I want to stop here. Maybe next time we can, but we can have a few minutes of questions and answers, but preferably related to the subject today and non-political questions. So if anybody wants to ask a question, please put up your hand and take the microphone. And I would prefer people who have sat here and listened, not somebody who hasn't heard. It's not compulsory to ask questions. Here. I have one here. Naresh, I have.
How do you...
Alla mic ku pidicha madi. That mic is not working.
Yes. I would like to know
It's okay.
The death and the birth, the punarjananam. Would you please explain?
Now this is very difficult to explain, but for me, birth and rebirth are things which are not theories. For me, from my understanding and my experience, I cannot prove it to you. I cannot put it in a test tube. But my life has been one in which I have passed through different births. I believe so myself. Also, can you imagine that I think suddenly when you die, this energy which was in us, which was talking, laughing, thinking good and bad things, does it completely disappear? Or do you think it could be somewhere? At least leave it that way. Suspend your judgment. Don't say it's gone. Then you'll realize that perhaps it has a longer period to go. And 3 children are born in the same household. Each thinks in a different way. They have the same genes, roughly the same genes. Could it be that they have some influence from the past? Or are they just... No, I don't need all this proof. I'm just saying, asking you, because we all want rational explanations, which is good. And the mind goes where it wants. If If it is thinking of something and you can't attain it in this life, it will stretch it to the next. So it is true that one leaves the body, according to me, and comes back again. And finally, according to this science or this theory of reincarnation, when a person is free of all desires and all cravings, when he has found the happiness within himself and he doesn't need anything from outside, he can stop coming back if that's what he wants, but he can also come back. Come back with the full understanding that if you have a physical body, you will go through all the suffering. Yes, the greatest people have suffered. Ramana Maharshi had cancer of the arm. If you have a body, it's inevitable. Knowing that fully well, if somebody says, I need to make people understand certain things which I know, they might still come back. But that coming back is different from the man or the human being, who comes back because his desires are not fulfilled. I can't prove it to you in a test tube, but well, for my life, I have seen such experiences for myself. So I can only say that.
At our stage in life, when we feel devotion towards a spiritual master, I don't know there's any way we can tell if that person's evolved or enlightened or what their experience really is. Does it matter from our side, having them as the object of our devotion? Does it matter where they are in their spiritual path? Or do we get the same value, whether they're God or the devil, as long as we love them and follow their teaching?
It's not even a question of a human being. If you have the ancient Hindu system of thought, even a stone becomes God. But the good thing about worshipping a Shivalinga and a living man is that living man may turn out to be a fake, but that will remain Shiva always. So, in this Kali Yuga that we are passing through, one has to be careful. Right? Therefore, I would prefer actually somebody worshipping something like a Shivling rather than a human being, because after all human beings have feet of clay. So afterwards, if you find out that there is something wrong, then you lose faith. Here you don't. Or, no, I'm just saying. Or you think of a beautiful image like Krishna. But the thing is that the most important thing about devotion is that you have to free yourself from all this stuff that has gathered inside us, hatred, anger, this. Then automatically your mind will fix itself only on that which is good. It won't go towards something else. So, one of the reasons why the Bhagavad Gita is called a Gita, it's a song. It's not prose, it's a song. You can't call a prose Gitam. Gitam is a song. It's because it's the song of the Lord. Can you think of Krishna is famous in the stories about Krishna as one who is playing the flute. Can you conceive of someone playing on a flute which is fully packed with muck? Not possible. It needs to be clean. It needs to be hollow to play it first of all. And from our point of view, there is a hollow flute in every one of us. Hollow. Without there is no muck. And there are 7 holes through which you can play the tunes. If you understand this, then I think we kind of understand what devotion is. Are you always accustomed to asking questions? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I am.
Good. Because I saw you many times.
So, if you're not accustomed to worshiping a linga,
A linga.
If you're not accustomed to worshiping a linga, then are you suggesting that rather than putting your worship or your devotional attention into a human form, even better to use a human form from like Krishna
Yes.
or Saraswati, or those are
This
forms?
is what I'm suggesting. And I'm also saying that the best thing would be to think of it in your heart, because it's your essence, truly. Don't be upset, I just asked you because I like you. You keep asking questions everywhere, in the retreat and so on. So, which is good because others can also understand what you're saying. Yeah? So, think of the divine in your heart. Even if you're thinking of a human form of a teacher, don't think of it as the form outside, but as that which is sitting inside. Because finally you'll have to come here. You can't find it there. Even the physical form of a teacher might disappear after a while. But this cannot go, because it's your inner essence. So that is better, I think. Because why I'm saying this, I have found many cases where people get very devotional and then they suddenly discover there's something wrong. They don't know what to do. Instead of that, why don't we remain with what is true? Oh, sorry.
So, I have 2 or 3 related questions. So, one question. First
Can
one is,
you just not use the microphone, because I can't hear you, too much echo here. Stand up, then I can hear you. 3.
Why are there so many gods in Hinduism? And is it okay to follow more than one god? And why do people sometimes they feel, that the god we are following is superior than the other?
Yeah. So listen, this is very interesting because according to the Hindu system of thought and philosophy, there are 33 crores of gods. Muppatti Mukkodi. 33 crores. Which means everything that is energy, everything that functions is considered to be divine. So it's not as if there is one, but they are all kind of, you can consider them as spokes coming from the same center. So there is in the center the Supreme Being from which there are different manifestations. This is the great thing about this philosophy. Otherwise somebody will say, this is the only God, you cannot look this way, that way. That's not there. You can look and interpret as you like, but as long as you understand that it is the divine which is being manifested, then there is no harm. Sometimes it is taken to such ridiculous extremes. You're right. There are some people in our own country, in India, who are worshippers of Shiva. Okay, that's fine. That's great, Mahadeva. They won't go to a Vishnu temple. There are people who are such Vaishnavites, they won't turn and look at a Shivlinga. Unfortunately, it is there. I'm telling you, I know, I have seen. So one day, this is very interesting, when my master, he wanted the, Maheshwarnath Babaji used to, when he is not walking around, which he was doing most of the time, when he settled down in one place, he used to have what is called a small people's court, kind of, C-O-U-R-T court, especially for religious disputes, because people knew him there. So, these Babajis are usually Vaishnava sadhus, they're called Goswamis. So in this Nama here, here. Some of them are good people, okay, great. So, the Goswamis and the Naga sadhus of the Shiva Sampradaya, Shaivites, had a big argument. And this was an unending discussion for 3 days. And finally, the more reasonable among them said, let's go to Nilkant, this Maheshwarnath Babaji, let's ask him what to solve this. So it so happened, fortunately, that I was also there. student sitting there watching everything. I was 22 years old. So they came, and this argument was, Babaji said, after hearing for 5 minutes, he said, okay, ruko, 1 minute, ruko. Wait, he said. Then he said, okay, at the moment, have you seen the face of Krishna or Rama or Shiva except in pictures? No, we haven't seen. Okay. But can you think of the feet? Yeah, that we can easily do. He said, when you think of the feet, is there any differentiation? They are feet anyway, right? Okay. So he said, right now you are at the feet level. Have intense devotion to the feet. Don't worry whose feet it is. Okay? And then as you progress and come to the face, then you can find out if the nama is this way or this way. Why are you fighting now? You know what I mean? So there are different ways. I think as many human beings are there on this earth, there may be so many approaches to divinity. But the divine is only one. I would go on, but it's getting time, so we'll give one more question. I wanted to tell you a beautiful story, but I can't. I need to.
Want to ask what should be the target? Is there should be a target or not target while going through this spirituality or path of spirituality? Basically, people do find some incentive, or what is that incentive towards this, coming towards this?
Yes. Now this is a big question. Why should we be religious? What is the aim? The fact is, I think we'll have to stop with this question, but I'm going to be a little elaborate on this. Sorry about this. So, what is it that we are all looking for, searching for in this life? What are we searching for? Are we searching for sorrow or pain, or are we looking for some kind of happiness in our lives? We might think that if I have one more car, it will be nice and happy, or bigger house, I might be happy. So this is what we are all looking for. Now just think of this. There is a fakir guy, fakir meaning you know what, sitting under a tree. The usual scene in India, used to be at least, sitting under a tree with a begging bowl in his hand, patched robes, maybe no robes at all, but an ecstatic smile on his face. He's not come from the lunatic asylum, actually. He's a sane man with a wonderful smile on his face. And hundreds of people have come to see him. You go to the parking lot, you'll see everything. Even sometimes now in India we have Rolls Royces also. What are they seeking from this guy who has nothing, who has only a begging bowl? Of course, there are some people who come take blessings for promotions and so on, but apart from that, what are they seeking? What is this man, what does this man have that they don't have? And in spite of owning all these things, if they are happy, would they come to this guy who has nothing? They've come for something which they find is lacking. So if you look at life, while we have our own happiness and so on, I can understand, we also have plenty of sorrow. And sometimes, when sorrow strikes us, we wake up with a jolt and say, good God, is this all there is to? Is there something else? Now, the great teachers everywhere, but I can tell you about the Indian system, have said that this joy and happiness, freedom from sorrow which you seek, is not to be found completely outside. Completely, no, little bit yes. On the other hand, if you turn around and look within, you might find it in your hearts. So, the whole process of spiritual practice is to turn around and look within. Of course, you have to look out when you're living in this world. Along with that, it's a good investment to keep So that tomorrow we don't know what's going to happen. I'm not saying you should always think about that. That's not a right way to live. But sometimes turn around and look, and I'm going to stop with this. It's a small little story, which was a favorite of the great weaver saint Kabir Das, who lived in Banaras. You know, in the Himalayas, we have a kind of a deer, man. You speak Malayalam, Tamil, what language? Marathi. I don't know what they call deer in Marathi. So there is this little deer in the Himalayas which is called the Kasturi Mriga. It produces, there is a small little pouch under its belly which in a certain season musk is generated. Musk is Kasturi. You have it in perfumes, beautiful musk. So when the musk exudes the fragrance, there's a beautiful fragrance in the air, and the poor deer, not knowing the source of this fragrance, goes looking for it everywhere in the forest, poking its snout into thorny bushes, bleeding, but still not knowing it's in its belly. Kabir said, that is the case with us human beings. Turn in and it is here. We look out for it and never find it. We find it, of course. I like some ice cream. I don't. I get a bad throat immediately. But it happens. So, since you are from Maharashtra, we have a great tradition out there. The Nath Sampradaya has a big tradition. The Dattatreya Sampradaya has a big tradition. I would suggest that get hold of a good translation of the Jnaneshwari, of Jnanadev, and read it. So that you can understand more about what I'm trying to say. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Namaste, namaskar, vanakkam.